Thank you all so much for coming. It's a very intimate show tonight, but those are some of my favorite as an audience member, so hope that you may feel the same. So I'm here to share with you the West African Kora. The Kora usually has 21 or 22 strings. It's a 300-year-old instrument, first built in the 1700s, although a lot of the musical tradition goes back 800 years to the founding of the Mandinka Empire in the mid-13th century. And the Mandinka people are one of 6 indigenous groups in Gambia, where I went to study. I've been 3 times now. And I had 2 teachers in Gambia that I worked with there, and another 2 that I studied with in Senegal for the first time last year. So most of the songs that I'll share with you are ones that I learned directly from them. And between the songs, we'll talk about some of the background and the history of the Kora, so we'll get to learn how it's built and all the materials that are used. I'll share about the people who play the Kora and what their role is with the instrument in society. And I'll also share about some of my own personal experiences that I had as a student over there. So this first one that I'd like to play is actually 2 songs rolled into one. The first one's called Kuruntu Kelifa. It was the very first song composed on the Kora in the 1720s. It's for a man named Kelifa Sane, and he helped to bring the Mandinka Empire from further off the Atlantic coast, kind of closer to the origins of where the empire started in the Kapu region, which is now in the country of Guinea-Bissau, and he kind of pushed it out towards the Atlantic Ocean. And all of this was happening well before any of the colonial boundaries were ever drawn. And the song that I will transition into from there is called Jato. Jato is the Mandinka word for the lion, so I'll be singing in the Mandinka language for this song, as I am for many of them. And so when I'm singing in this one, I'm basically saying, if you are to meet a lion in the wilderness, you should give respect, but also take caution. Miniamba. So up until my first trip to Senegal last year, I had thought that this song meant something completely different from what was shared with me last year about it. So in Gambia, my primary teacher, Moriba Kuyate, had said that this is a song about one being in a state of travel, like you're away from home, and when you are, you should be well looked after and taken care of. In Senegal last year, I was told that this is a folk song, or a folk story, between a person and a snake, and that when physical contact is made between the two, good things happen for both the person and the snake. So, take your pick.
Amadou Sekou, so it's named after Sekou Touré. He was one of the former presidents of Guinea, West Africa, which other than Gambia and Senegal, where I studied, is one of the other 4 countries where you can find the Kora. He was president back in I believe the late 1700s, maybe even early 1800s. And so Amadou is it's a name or a title of sorts that's given to someone of very high respect. So this was composed kind of in commemoration of who he was as a presidential leader.
Kora, which, as I mentioned before, the first one was built in around the 1720s. So I'll describe it to you, kind of going from the bottom, working up. So at the base here is a calabash, which is a gourd that grows a lot like a pumpkin, so low to the ground. You've got to pick it off the stem. And then you have to cut it in half. And to do that, you'll usually use a large handsaw. So you'll get 2 halves out of it. And then you'll have to scoop out all of the seeds and all the wet stuff that's in there, just kind of down to the bedrock, if you will, of the calabash. And then you'll have to dry it in the sun. And so that could take a couple weeks, maybe up to a month even, just depending on the time of year and the moisture content in the air. So it'll take a little longer to dry out if there's more moisture in the air. So once you've got your half calabash, you would stretch an animal skin over the open half, which then gets nailed to the back side here with upholstery tacks. And so you have to put the skin on while it's wet, because if it's even slightly dry, it'll probably crack, and you just have to tear it off and put another one on. So to get the skin on, you have to soak it in a bucket of water overnight, put it flat on the ground, and then lay your calabash, the rim of your calabash, right up over the top of the skin, and you'll start folding the flaps of the skin up and over the round side until the skin's completely covering the calabash. So from there, you will take a knife and cut holes into your animal skin about where the upholstery tacks are going to go. But these holes are actually for rope, not the upholstery tacks. So you have to take a very long rope and start stringing it through all those holes to tighten the animal skin on the front side. All right. So when you do that, the calabash is on the grounds, and you'll take the end of your rope and tie it off to one of those holes, and you'll put your foot onto the calabash, and you're just going to start stringing it through all those others. You'll have to take your foot up when it goes through every hole. But as you're doing that whole process, you're yanking the heck out of that rope to really make that skin nice and tight. Eventually you'll have what appears to be a giant star-shaped pattern of rope back here, completely covering the calabash still. So that's when you go ahead and go to your upholstery tacks, and you nail them in with a hammer, one by one, going around a circle here. You go back to your knife and cut right behind the upholstery tacks that you just put in to take off all the rope and all the leftover animal hide, and that will re-expose your calabash to where you can see it again. From there, you go ahead and put your dowels in. You got 2 handlebars here and a crossbar. So you've got 4 holes for the handlebars that I'm holding, and then another 2 for the crossbar that slide just behind it. And so once you have those through, those 3 dowels, you'll just set the calabash, cow skin attached with the dowels in the sun for a little bit, like maybe a couple of days while it dries out a bit. So while you're doing that, you can prepare the conso along the neck here. All right, so the conso is the Mandinka term used to describe these tuning rings. And so they are also animal hide, so they also get applied while they're wet. So the main difference is that they're cut long and thin, and then they're cross-braided around the neck here. And so once you reach the end, you go ahead and take the knife to cut off whatever's remaining there. And so the neck will just be sitting by itself while the conso dry out a little bit. And then you can start putting everything else together. So first you have to drill 2 holes into the calabash so that the neck here can slide through the top and the bottom down here. And then the 3rd hole is the largest of the 3. And so that one serves 2 very critical roles. And so the first is so that the sound can come out, and the second is so that money can go in. And so the reason money goes into this hole is because there are many traditional songs named after people who had some role in the expansion of the Mandinka Empire, dating all the way back to the mid-1200s. So, I mean, there are songs written about people who lived anywhere between the 1200s and the 1900s, really. And so the rule is, pretty much, in a performance today, anytime there is someone in the audience who is related to a person who a song's written for as it's being played, it's then this person's responsibility to come up and pay the musicians. And so I'll get into exactly why that happens later, because that's such a huge part as why all this music exists. And not to worry, I am not planning on singing about any of your families this afternoon. So just to be on the safe side. And so, all right, so we've got our holes. So once your neck slides through, you can drill a hole through the bottom of your neck, and then you put this iron ring through here, which has been welded into like a circular shape, and you slide it through and secure it in place. There's a few different ways you can go about that. I've just got some black nylon cord on this one here. Then you take your anchor strings. They're the shorter ones down here. They're mostly blue on this particular Kora. So you wrap them around the ring. And then you go to each of your plucking strings, which you've already cut out to length, and you first tie each of your plucking strings off to an individual anchor string, and then the plucking strings finally get wrapped around each of these individual conso here. You wrap them around about 4 or 5 times and then tie them off. So as you're bringing these up with your newly applied strings to tighten them, that's the point where you can go ahead and put on your bato. The bato is this notched bridge right here. So there's little divots cut out for each of the strings to go into. And there's 11 plucking strings on the left side and 11 on the right. And so it's very important to maintain the parallel nature of those strings. And there's also a piece of particle board that's been wrapped in a pink felt cloth. And that prevents the bato from gouging into the animal skin and tearing it up. So, because the bato is not held, it's not physically attached to the kora, it's being held there by the tension of all of the plucking strings. So this model of kora is considered the traditional kora. It's been built this way pretty much for 100 years, so early 1920s. Before that, I should say right around 1920, there were a couple of modifications that were made compared to the initial kora back in the 1720s. So we've got calabash, as I mentioned before. The animal skin comes from cow. I've never seen anything more than that used. So both this one here, but then also the conso are cowhide tuning rings. Your wood is called kano, which I believe is found, those trees are found in the coastal forest regions towards Guinea. And then your plucking strings are monofilament fishing line. So anywhere between 30-pound and 200-pound test grade fishing line. That was the biggest change that came about in the 1920s, because before that, instead of fishing line, they used antelope skin, the hide of antelope. And I've been told that it was a very quick transition across the board to the fishing line by kora players from all over the region, just because it was so much easier to work with than the antelope hide tuning strings. Nowadays, you are starting to see kora builders use a modified tuning system. I should say this has been going on for like 20, 25 years or so. So a lot of kora players, rather than using the conso here, they'll use guitar-style tuning pegs. So for that, if you were going to do that, you'd want to have a neck that was not a circular shape like we have here. You'd want to have one that was a rectangle so that you could fasten your guitar tuners to both the left and the right side of the neck in order to maintain the parallel string setup. But once you have that, it is a lot easier to keep in tune than using the conso, which really just use resistance with the wood to stay there.
There are 4 traditional tunings with the kora. So their mandinka names are Silaba, Sauta, Tomara, and Hardino. And I primarily play in the Silaba and Sauta tunings. So within Silaba, most of the tunes that are composed there come from closer to the Atlantic coast in places like Gambia and Senegal. Once you get into Sauta, you're looking at songs that are in places further inland, like Mali and Upper Guinea. And then you've got the Tomara. So I should say, all 4 tunings use a 7-pitch diatonic scale. So because of that, you can play really easily with other instruments that you all have seen before. The Tomara tuning uses a lowered 3rd and 7th scale degrees, so it kind of sounds more of a minor or Lydian tuning. And then the Hardino, in addition to that, I believe uses a lowered 6th degree. So here's your 7 degrees. And your octave. So to go from Silaba, where I've been, to Sauta, I'm going to go to the 4th degree. And there's 2 of those on the kora. I'm going to take them both up a half step. 22nd string, or the extra string, because for the longest time, the Kora only had 21 strings until about the 1970s. And once that 22nd string was added, the elders frowned upon it at the time. Like, a lot of them felt like it was taking away from the traditional nature of the instrument. But over time, it became more commonplace, and I feel like over 75% of the Koras that I see in both Gambia and Senegal have 22 or even more strings. Anytime you've got more than 21 strings, you're going to tune each of the extras to whichever other pitch on the Kora suits your fancy. So it's really up to you what those extras are tuned to. Okay, this one's called Kasumaman. This is a relatively new song. It's only about 30, 40 years old, and it's a spin-off from another song that was composed back in the 1960s. So this song is called Kasumaman. The song that it's based off of is called Apollo, and that one was composed in Mali back in the 60s in commemoration of the Apollo space mission. So. This one's Bajulo. I learned this in Senegal last year, and it it's a song for the region in which my teachers there live, which is, it's kind of between a couple of cities. One is Sali and the other is Mbor, and they're both about an hour and a half south of Dakar, the Senegalese capital, which is a city of about 10 million people. And so, not exactly sure how old this song is, but kind of speaks of the regional historical importance, but also how it's evolved into what it is now. Ninkube Keledi means when you are meeting someone for the very first time, you get a very good feeling about them, and you would like to try to get to know them better. Ninkube Keledi. Thanks.
The Kora is typically played by a group of people that many would consider to be part of a class system that exists, because you find that if you're born over there in Gambia or Senegal or even Mali, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Burkina Faso, where the Kora is from, you find that every family will be doing one thing for work throughout many generations within their family lineage, going all the way back to the 1200s. This has been changing a bit in recent history, but a lot of the types of work we're talking about are similar to what we have here. However, the people playing these instruments are, I would say, in their own realm of sorts, because they are hereditary historians. And there's a particular term that is given to them. That's the word griot, spelled G-R-I-O-T. And it is the responsibility of a griot to carry forth 800 years worth of history, going all the way back to the start of the empire, the Mandinka Empire. And the Kora is most significant because it's used as one of the primary methods for telling about the history through all of these songs that you hear. So many songs are named after battles that took place, others about army generals, those who fought in battles, political leaders from all different ranks, and that's just a kind of a small example. People also write their own songs in the Kora, just like people here do. And so when I was in West Africa, I would usually see the Kora played at three types of events. One was very casual and laid back, and the other two were quite formal. Casual event would probably happen once or twice a month inside of a griot family's compound. That word is the term that people there used to describe the homes that they live in. So a compound is where an extended family lives, anywhere between 15 and 25 people usually. So you'd have anyone from a grandparent all the way down to a grandchild, and everything in between, cousins and whatnot. And most of the compounds had very central open-air courtyards right in the middle, and then everyone's rooms would be on the walls towards the outside. So here, you may have the host family set up 20, 30 chairs. People would come, sit, hang out for a couple hours, and listen to some music. It was very casual. So first off, the Kora was usually played with other instruments. So seeing it solo like this was more rare. Like you could ask for someone to play it solo for you, but it was usually accompanied by kind of a mix of both traditional instruments and non-traditional. So the most common instruments to accompany it would be the balafon, which is a wooden xylophone. It's played with one mallet in each hand. And you'd also have another one called the ngoni, N-G-O-N-I. It's a lute that's about that long, and it's played more like a guitar. So you strum the string with one hand and you fret them with the other. 6 strings. Historically, the Kora and the other instruments were only played by men because it was forbidden for women to play the instruments. That also has been changing a lot. I feel like I've noticed within all my 4 visits to the continent in West Africa, I feel like each trip I've noticed progressively more women, especially younger girls, learning the traditional instruments, performing in some cases, with encouragement from their families, which is a huge change, and it's really good to see. In fact, one of the most well-known touring Kora players in the world is Sona Jabate. She lives in London, but her dad lives in Gambia, and she tours all over the world. I know she's been around here. If you get a chance to check her out sometime, definitely go to one of her shows. She usually tours with a 5 or 6 person band. And so weddings and naming ceremonies are where you would also see the Kora. They're very formal events. And so both of these have 3 very distinct segments. So the ceremony would happen early afternoon. Then you have a huge feast as the second part, and then the music was sort of like the after party, going late into the night. And At a musical event, sometimes you would just see a small ensemble of these, but occasionally it would be in a larger band as well, surrounded by electric guitar, electric bass, like a drum set that you would see in a jazz band or a rock band, a synthesizer even, like one of those electric keyboards, and then a mix of traditional instruments like the ones we talked about earlier, and drums as well, like sabar, which are these tall and thin drums that are played with one hand and one stick. More common up in Senegal are these particular drums, the sabar. And the music, like I said, it would go on until midnight, 1, 2 a.m. And so it made for the end of a very long day with the ceremony, but most people would stick around to the very end. Unlike the actual ceremony during the day, you didn't have to have an invite from the host family to come hear the music. So if it sounded good from a ways away, you could just come into where it was being held and the family would say, come on in. And so it worked out really well for the band because by this point, unlike the ceremony during the day, which might have 100, 150 people, by the time the music rolled around, you could have closer to 200, 300, or even 400 people. And if the family of either the newlyweds or the newborn child, depending on the event, felt that a lot of people were going to be attending, they may rent out the soccer fields, for instance, of a local elementary school, which, unlike a lot of the ones here in the States, had like more of a sand surface. And so when people got up and danced, it turned into a dust bowl, but it didn't stop people from dancing. So, in order to earn their living as musicians, a lot of them were in bands that would go around and play 2, 3, or 4 of these events a week. That was a primary source of income for a lot of griot families. So, to engage the audience, what you would find happen is that eventually the band will come across a song that's about a particular person who probably passed away a long time ago. And so the lead singer would start coming up and talking about this person and where they were born and how their contributions in life may have influenced that family's trajectory and how that may have played out in overall society on a larger scale. This could go on for a good 10 or 20 minutes while the melody's just going on in the background the whole time. So the person's literally talking to the person, talking to the audience about this person while the melody's going on. And so a lot of times, the band was led by someone called a Jeli Musso. So Jeli is another word for griot, these hereditary historians. And so a Jeli Musso is basically a female griot, so Musso means female. And historically, if a Jeli Musso was in your bands, you tune all the instruments to her voice to bring out the best quality of her voice. You had to know well ahead of time what their vocal range was based on how challenging it is to tune these things. So for instance, right now, the most dominant pitch on my Kora is the note of G, and I've got 4 of them on the Kora. So if I was going to be playing with a Jeli Musso whose vocal range was down a whole step in F, I'd want to know probably 4 days ahead of time so that I could tune all the strings down to match her voice. And during that window, I'd probably be tuning the Kora 2 or 3 times a day to continue loosening the strings to try to get them to where I would like them to be. For the balafone, that one's even harder to retune. You actually have to shave wood off the bottom of the keys with an electric sander. And unlike the Kora, once you take the wood off, you can't put it back. So it's a lot harder to work with. So yeah, Jeli Musso is up there talking about this person. And so at the end of this 10, 15, 20-minute segment, she's going to try to go fishing out in the audience, meaning that she's trying to figure out if anyone out there is a direct descendant or a relative of this person that the song is for. So here she's basically saying, all right, so anyone out there now, based on what I've shared with you about this very important person, if there's anyone related in the audience tonight, I would like for you to now come up and show your respects in the form of a cash payment. So, and for most of these shows, I was usually sitting right alongside the band or just behind them, and I'd look out to this huge audience and I'd see 4 or 5 people just stand up and kind of walk towards the band as they were reaching into their pockets, or maybe a jacket or a purse even in some cases, reaching for cash. And they may just walk right up to the Kora player and start putting cash into the sound hole of the calabash there. Others may hand it right to the Jelly Musso as she's singing, engaging the audience. And others could walk up to each of the individual band members and maybe post a currency bill to their sweaty forehead. And it would just kind of stick there before it would drop to the grounds. And my sense is that this exchange would happen often in musical events in sort of a playful manner as a way to express appreciation for the griots, these hereditary historians whose responsibility it is to carry forth the history. There's this carved out role for them to do just this. A lot of them do it in musical form. Some of them only do it through oral storytelling or history telling, and a lot do it both ways. And so, I think the gesture of giving cash to a griot, whether it be in a musical performance or anywhere else, is really a sign of respect and a sign that the people really want the tradition to continue in this manner. So,
I know we're a small audience today, but I'm hoping that y'all can help me with this next song. This one goes back 800 years. It's called Tira Makan. Tira Makan Traore helped to form some of the first armies that would go out into battle. And so there's a call and response singing with the song, so I'd like your help with the response. It's 3 words in Mandinka, repeated. So the 3 words mean, the enemy was not successful at piercing Tira Makan with a sword. So, for starters, I'd like you to say each of the 3 words after me, one at a time. The first word is Susa.
Susa.
Second word is Rejo.
Rejo.
And the third word is the name of the song, Tira Makan.
Tira Makan.
Tira Makan.
Tira Makan.
Good. So now say Susa Rejo Tira Makan.
Susa
Rejo Tira Makan. Good. So when it's sung, it sounds like this. And I'm just going to sing it to you, and then if you could, just go ahead and sing it back to me, and we'll pass it back and forth to each other for a bit. It goes, Susa Rejo Tira Makan. Susa Rejo Tira Makan. I'll go. Susa Rejo Tira Makan. Again. Susa Rejo Tira Makan. Yeah. So that's all it is. It just repeats. And it's a round of 4. So there's 3 call lines within that. So the first one is A Muru Ebang Tira Makan. So that means the enemy tried to pierce Tira Makan with a sword. So that's when we come in and say Susa Rejo Tira Makan. I'll then say Kelike Muru Ebang Tira Makan. So Kelike, I believe, it's saying Kelike is a person warning that the sword is imminent, like it's too close. We respond again, Susa Rejo Tira Makan. And then the last call line is Ifa Tira Makan, Iba Tira Makan, which is the father and mother of Tira Makan. Wish for his safe return home. And we respond after that. And that line gets repeated and responded to complete the round of 4. So let's try it. It goes, Muru Yebang Tira Makan. Susa Rejo Tira Makan. Kelike Muru Yebang Tira Makan. Susa Rejo Tira Makan. Iba Tira Makan. Ifa Tira Makan. Susa Rejo Tira Makan. Iba Tira Makan. Ifa Tira Makan. Susa Rejo Tira Makan. Good. All right. Yes.
Hi, sorry, I just got into the show. What kind of instrument is that? What is that thing?
Yeah, this is the West African Kora. Yeah.
Oh goodness, I thought it was some kind of like, I thought it was like, you know who Nora Jones is, right?
Yeah.
Or is it like a sitar?
No.
It's not a sitar? Well, what is it? What is it again?
Kora.
And it's from where?
West Africa.
Oh, wow. It's interesting. I've never seen anything like that in my life. It's interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Okay.
Here we go, Tira Makan. Thank you.
I was first introduced to the Kora about 19 years ago, and I came to it at a music festival in my hometown of Olympia, Washington, which is about 40 minutes south of where I live now in Tacoma. And so the performer that night was another foreign musician of the instruments. His name was Kane Mathis, and he had been to Gambia quite a few times at that point. And I just remember leaning back on the wooden benches where the performance was held that night, looking up at a very tall ceiling, eyes closed, and wondering how all of the sound could possibly be coming from one instrument. Like, to me, it just sounded like an ensemble of instruments. And so I absolutely fell in love with the sound of the instruments.
What musical background did you have at that point?
Yeah, you hit me at a perfect point. Yeah, so that night I decided to transition from being a lifelong clarinet player over to the Kora. Not the most common transition from one instrument to another. And so a couple weeks later I went up to Seattle where Kane lived to hear him again, but also to talk with him. And this time I found out that he was willing to teach. So I started going up to his place in Seattle to take lessons for, once every couple of months for about a year and a half. Then I went back to school to finish up my college degree, and through my school there, I was able to get a study contract and a scholarship to go to Gambia and earn credit towards my degree. So that was the first trip of 4 that I took, and that was the longest, being 3.5 months. Graduated pretty shortly after, but I went back to Gambia in both 2012 and 2018, and my first trip to Senegal, like I said, was last year in 2023. So Kane, my U.S. teacher, put me in touch with the Gambian teachers that I worked with because he had been with them before. So their names are Moriba Kouyaté, and he's the son of Malamini Jabate. And then in Senegal last year, worked with Youssoufa Sissoko. He's the son of Mamadou, or the father of my second teacher, Mamadou Sissoko. All 4 trips I received anywhere between 4 to 8 hours of individual instruction per day, one-on-one. I could have a lesson in the morning, afternoon, and evening if I so chose. And there's lots of practice time in between. And on top of that, I was hosted by their extended families in their compound, and honestly taken care of as if I was family, which was truly remarkable. Like the fact that they were willing to take in someone from the other side of the world who had absolutely no connection to the music, and teach me all that they did was truly a gift. And so I really thank them for their permission to do this, to show this to you. And I also thank you for coming out. So thanks so much. I will send you home with one more, and I will let you ask some questions if you want. I will also say before that I've got some recordings available for sale over here. There's 2 CDs. The orange one is an 8-year-old recording. That's $15. The white album I just released a few months ago, that one's $20. You can pay with cash or check. There's a small plastic tub right to the left of the CDs, so you can put your cash or check there. You can also pay with a credit card. You can come see me for that. You can also pay with Venmo. There's a QR code for my Venmo account sitting on the table there. You can also use PayPal if you want. I'll have to bring out my QR code for that if you want to go that way. Or if you're like me and you don't own a CD player anymore, I do have digital downloads of both those recordings on Bandcamp. And my QR code for the Bandcamp site is just to the far left up on the table there. To the far right, there are QR codes for each of the social media sites that I post content to. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. YouTube's probably the one that I'm most active on, posting new videos to, so feel free to follow my YouTube page. I am based in Washington State, and I tour this way usually once a year. This is part of a 13-program tour, 10 of which are here in Massachusetts, and a couple others are in Rhode Island and Connecticut. So I have an email list. If you want to sign up for that, I'll let you know the next time that I'm coming through. Or you can just go to my website, SeanGaskell.com. So, any questions? Yeah.
So you said you're from Washington?
Yeah.
Where in Washington? Seattle?
Tacoma.
Tacoma?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So are you in the woods?
No, I'm in the
Okay.
city. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
long ways from you. Did you fly?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long flight.
Yep.
Goodness.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you want to come have a close look at the Kora, after I'm done with this last song here, I will unplug it, turn it around. You can take a picture of it, and all the above. I always like to thank the hosts. There's a lot of libraries. There's a variety of different fundings that make programs like this possible. But I did want to thank Lynn. She's the one who helped bring me here. So thank you, Lynn.
This one is one that I wrote. Didn't actually write it down, so none of this music's written on sheet music. And so for 9 years, I lived in Asheville, North Carolina, which you all known has been in the news lately. Fortunately, I've been hearing back one by one from all the folks that I'm closely connected with there that they're alive, they're well, but the town, especially right along the French Broad River, is absolutely devastated. So I played this song with a bit of a heavy heart. Back in 2018, I took a backpacking trip into the Great Smoky Mountains National Park with my wife, and there's an absolutely gorgeous sunset from our backcountry campsite. So when I got home the next day, I started writing this song. It's called Smoky Mountain Sunset.
Thank you all again so much for coming out. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something too. So hope to see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.